So this started the way all horrible ideas start. Which is me standing in the Mojave, staring at a pile of bottle caps and asking myself a question nobody with survival instincts should ever ask. How much would it cost to make Fallout New Vegas inside Fallout New Vegas? Revolutionary, I know. I mean, actually make it. Hire people, pay salaries, build computers, write software, market it, ship it, all of it in the wasteland, using caps. And somehow, like the idea of her coming back to you one day, this thought refused to leave my brain. So I did what any responsible courier would do and pitched it to the only corporation evil enough to still exist after nuclear annihilation, EA. And don't pretend that's unrealistic, because if cockroaches survive nukes, this company absolutely did. EA survives because microtransactions are apparently immune to radiation. The motive was simple. The wasteland is bored, no internet, no live service games to endlessly make them money. So the idea is basically genius in a horrifying way. Made the greatest RPG ever made again, sell it to wastelanders, and corner the entertainment market forever. No competition. Well, except there was competition. Before I even hired a single dev, I found out a Brahmin farm. What the fuck am I saying? I found out a Brahmin farm nearby was secretly operating as a rival game studio. And EA, under the new management of Mr. House, told me to go talk to them. And corporate language being what it is, that meant I walked in, said nothing, and wiped the entire place off the fucking map. Now, without further ado, welcome to the Mojave games industry. Now, staffing is a nightmare on its own because, well, there are no programmers. There are no designers. There is no Reddit thread explaining how to fix the compiler error. So, you've just got to improvise. And I could ask the Brotherhood of Steel to help with hardware, but then they would want to lock the source code in a bunker and execute anyone who tries to patch it. So they're, out of the equation, which means I have to figure out hardware myself. And about that, Fallout computers are not computers. Kind of. Let me explain. They're not computers in the modern sense. They don't run programs dynamically. Every option you see on a terminal is either hard-coded text or tied to a script. So when you click open door, you're not executing code. You're just triggering a pre-written script that tells the computer that if the player clicked option 1, set door to unlocked. Now, canonically, there are actually games that you can play in Fallout terminals. For example, we have Grognak and the Ruby Ruins in Fallout 4, a full-on RPG with stats, combat, and randomization. Or Red Menace, basically Donkey Kong but for communists and radioactive. This shows that people from before the Great War absolutely made games on these things. But there is unfortunately a catch. These games were not created inside the terminal system itself. They were instead separate minigame programs written and compiled by the developers and then launched through terminals or holotapes. The terminal is just the launcher, not the engine. Think of it like the terminal is Steam and the game is an exe file, but there's the hood behind a green screen. But this doesn't mean it's impossible though. In the Fallout universe, computing power is a fascinating contradiction. It is both simultaneously primitive and godlike in nature. The divergence in the Fallout timeline meant that society focused on nuclear physics and miniaturizing nuclear reactors rather than digital electronics like transistors. As a result, they used brute force engineering to achieve high-level tasks. If you compare the standard desktop terminal in Fallout to a modern smartphone wins by a landslide in terms of processing speed and memory. But despite the low specs, Fallout computers perform tasks that our modern, faster computers still can't do. Things like true artificial intelligence. Look at someone like Nick Valentine, who's a fully sentient robot of sorts. And speaking of robots, Mr. Handy Robot can navigate a cluttered home, recognize thousands of objects, and hold complex conversations, all while powered by a tiny onboard processor that never needs a recharge. Which is seriously impressive if you think about it. All these computers aside, could they actually make a game like Fallout New Vegas? We'll get back to that later, but for now I need to access a lot of resources, and where else to look but the glorious Las Vegas Strip. Which brings me to Mr. House, the worst publisher imaginable. I go to the Strip to negotiate server access and immediately forget why I'm there because I get distracted by completely derailed. 5 minutes pass and I'm no longer thinking about game engines or budgets. Eventually though, I snap out of it and remember that I'm supposed to be professional and go talk to House. House loves the idea. Not because it's art, but because he wants control. He wants exclusivity and to decide which endings are canon. But he has access to a large computer network. So we take the deal and, regret it later. Because now comes the worst part of the entire project, the software. There is no Unreal Engine, no Unity, no Stack Overflow. We have to invent a game engine from scratch in a post-apocalyptic desert using code nobody fully understands. We essentially have to build tools to build tools. Stay with me now. The only reason that this is a problem is because New Vegas has actual graphics and physics simulations behind it. This in theory means that while you could write the code for a physics engine because Fallout computers are great at math, however, the rendering part of the engine would be a dead end. Modern game engines use a process known as rasterization to turn 3D shapes into pixels. Fallout terminals are largely vector or character based, meaning they're limited in this regard and can't practice the process of rasterization. All that put aside anyway, compiling a game engine takes minutes, but because the terminals of Fallout use vacuum tubes, the heat generated during a heavy compile would be immense. A terminal might take hours or days to compile a complex engine. You'd need a literal cooling fan the size of a jet engine just to keep the terminal from melting while it processes the code. But this doesn't mean it be impossible though. And here's how we could make it work. Your average RobCo terminal has about 256 kilobytes of RAM. To put that in perspective, New Vegas requires 2 gigabytes to run. You'd need to daisy chain about 8,000 terminals together just to get past the loading screen, which means you'd have to make a lot of sacrifices. And in the end, it would look a lot like Groknak and the Ruby Ruin. You swap the first-person combat for a top-down grid-based tactical RPG, almost going back to the original Fallout. Or better yet, you could make it a text adventure, since these machines are built for logic and data. A terminal could easily handle the game's complex reputation systems and branching dialogue. You type something like this, and then the terminal would spit out. And don't forget, at the end of the video, I'm going to try to calculate just how much in caps it will cost to make this game. So, subscribe if you're liking it so far. Then we have to market it. So how exactly do you market a game to a survivor who hasn't seen a functioning toilet in about 3 generations? Well, that's the fun part. You don't sell them a game. You sell them an escape, an idea. Instead of a TV advert, marketing is being done by a wandering trader shouting outside the gates of the strip. It sounds less like a commercial and more like a snake oil pitch. Okay, here we go. Hey, you with the radiation burns, tired of being chased by death claws, sick of your water tasting like lead? Step right up and get your hands on the Mojave Miracle. It's a pre-roll holotape that will take you to a place where the lights stay on and the drinks stay cold. It's better than jet, cheaper than a stimpak, and 100% guaranteed not to explode in your pit boy. Warning, because eye strain, vacuum tube burns, or mild cases of existential dread. EA Mr. House is not responsible for any lost saves and lives due to sudden total atomic annihilation. Terms and conditions apply. Now that we got that out of the way, we still need a way to produce this game on holotapes and distribute them all across the Mojave. The primary manufacturer of holotapes was Watts Electronics, though RobCo and Vaultec produced their own specialized version. In the post-apocalypse, you can't exactly call Watts Electronics for a fresh batch of tapes. So we have to get creative. We'll start by overwriting old holotapes found in offices and abandoned buildings. And after that's done with, we recase the tapes and send them on their way to the Mojave. Holotapes survived for a very long time, as we've seen with the Great War, making it the perfect home for a game about a main man who just refuses to die. What the fuck was that? Now back to the original question. Just how much, both in dollars and bottle caps, would it cost to make this game from scratch in New Vegas? Now, in the Mojave, a single bottle cap is equivalent to about $10 in pre-war money. And considering Fallout New Vegas cost around an estimated $30 million at the time, which if adjusted for inflation is about $40 million. The game would have to cost a whopping 4 million bottle cap, or approximately 160,000 stimpaks. With that kind of money, you'd be able to purchase about 1,600 sets of T60 power armor. But while $40 million sounds like a king's ransom today, remember that in the Fallout lore, the US dollar was suffering from extreme hyperinflation right before the bombs fell. So a cheap dinner cost around $120, while a single gallon of gasoline would set you back over $7,000. So, while 4 million bottle caps would make you the richest person in the post-apocalypse, back in 2077, $40 million would have barely bought you 200 cars or a very nice house in the suburb. And there you have it, folks. Yes, it is possible, but it requires so much walkarounds and a lot of cap that at the end of the day, you start to wonder if it's even worth the hassle. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribe. I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so it would go a long way. And I've got to go now. I've got lectures in a few minutes. Bye.